Greetings, I am Herbert Erpaderp, and today I'm going to build this Victoria British main battle tank from World War design. This is a 28mm scale resin gaming model intended for Weird War and alternate history type armies and games. This is obviously not a regular tank, it's a big stompy walker, as you can see from those legs. It also incorporates elements from both the British Crusader and Tortoise. The kit was sent to me by World War Design, also known as Pax Britannica in my community, for the purposes of making this video, and unfortunately it has taken me a while to get to it, but I certainly do appreciate it, and I think you will too. There will be links in the description where you can find more information about World War Design. The back of the box shows us an exploded diagram that functions as instructions. This seems fairly simple and straightforward to put together, and spoilers, it is. Inside the box we find two baggies with a bunch of resin bits. Like the XT45 mech from World War Design that I looked at a while ago, the parts in this kit are quite nice and neat. There are a couple of slight imperfections here and there, but they're all very minor and easily dealt with. You will need to do a little bit of cleanup before putting this model together, like pretty much any model really, but unlike a plastic model, you'll need to use files and sandpaper here, and it will make dust. It's important to note that when working with resin, you should wear a mask. You really don't want the dust in your lungs. And once you're done, clean up the work surface properly. I know that makes it sound like cleaning up this kit is a lot of work, but it's not really. As you should be able to see, the parts are all quite nice and neat looking. If you've been around my channel for a while, you'll know that I'm not really the biggest fan of resin, but when it's done well, like this, it can be quite nice. The detail here is quite good. Obviously this is a fantasy design, so there's no real-world version to compare it with, but like I said before, it does take design elements from real-world vehicles, and I really like that. I think it's quite interesting. I rather like all the big rivets and nice chonky details around this model. Pax did mention that people are saying rivets like this are unrealistic for something intended to be a late war machine, but also that he doesn't care because they look cool. And I'm quite inclined to agree. It does look cool. It will also add a lot of interest when it comes time for painting and weathering. I took the pictures of these parts before I did any cleanup with them, so you can see little bits of excess resin here and there. Also, the main gun is a bit bent. This sort of thing is pretty common with long thin bits of resin, and fortunately the fix is easy. You simply put the part in hot water and then bend it back to the shape it should be. All of the other bits and pieces are pretty good. The tip of one of the turret guns is going to need a bit of putty, but compared to some of the other resin kits I've seen, these are some incredibly minor flaws. One thing I will point out though is with the commander's hatch. Be very careful in cleaning up the excess resin that fills the space between the hinges at one end. It's not hard, but it would be easy to mess this up. That's probably actually the most difficult thing with this kit, which is to say it's quite easy, so let's begin. I decided to start with the turret because why not? Because this is a resin kit, we can't use plastic cement, so instead I'm using superglue. In this case I'm using cheap superglue I got from the supermarket. I like the kind that has a brush, it makes things a lot easier. You could buy modelling specific superglue, but really you would be paying a lot more for the same thing. As I assume you can see, I've inserted the dual turret guns into the front of the turret. I move the part around to spread the glue, and I quickly position the gun at the elevation I want. I then add glue where the mantlet part will contact the turret front and slide it on over the guns. This part is symmetrical, so it doesn't matter which way up you put it, unless you try to put it on sideways, I guess. I apply some pressure while the glue bonds, and fortunately, it does so rather quickly. I think the dual gun thing looks really cool. Next, I add the commander's hatch. This is pretty much just a matter of adding glue and dropping the part into place. It's nice and easy. This does have a particular way around that it should be facing, but I suspect if you do put it on backwards, it's not really going to be a big problem. One final detail to add to the turret is the searchlight. This pretty much just drops right into place in the little recess on the right side of the turret. And then we've got ourselves a nice searchlight, which will be handy when it's nighttime and the Victoria is looking for things to stomp on. That's the turret completed. It's nice, neat, and looks really good. If you wanted to be extra fancy, you could put a length of wire or styrene rod or something into the antenna mount there, though obviously I haven't done that. It's now time to build the hull. Like with most resin tank models, most of it's already done because the hull is mostly one solid part, but we do have to attach some things, like the legs. This is really easy. You can sort of clip them into place and they should stay there, at least temporarily. It won't stand up to much rough handling, but this is enough to stay there while we attach the lower bar part that holds them in place. Putting these on is very simple. It's easy to not add glue to the moving parts, so you can have movable legs if you choose. I think that's a pretty cool feature, even if you do want to glue them solidly in place later on. The rear legs go on the same way as the front ones, though there are a couple of nubbins there, and the support bar will snap into place against them, which is quite satisfying. It would probably stay there by itself, but I would suggest adding glue anyway. Gotta keep the glue god happy. The legs are pretty good, and the model is relatively level when you stand it up, though not perfect. PAX notes that if you glue the support bars on first, remove the pins from the leg joints and then glue them in, you can get the model to stand a bit more level. I wasn't especially worried about that though, and because I'm considering mounting it onto a base, I think having the legs movable will be beneficial. Next comes this bar thing that goes across the lower front of the hull. I don't know what you might call this, but it goes into place quite easily. It might look cool to hang some chains or ropes or something off of this thing, or maybe you could add some sort of additional weapon or maybe some stowage or something like that. Either way, it's an interesting part of the model. I follow that with the external fuel tank on the rear of the hull. Because I'm a right dingus, I didn't realise at the time that I was gluing this on upside down. What a blithering idiot. I mean, it still looks okay, but you'll notice at the end of the video that I did actually remove it and reattach it the right way up. That's the good thing about superglue bonds, I guess. They're very easily broken, so if you do something like that, you can just pull the part off and reattach it. Next, I attach the big hull-mounted gun. I would argue that this is in fact the main gun, and the ones in the turret are secondary. This is pretty easy to install, and you can see that I've mostly corrected the bend that it had, though there is still a slight curve to it. I installed this with the curve slightly upwards, with the hope that gravity might gently bend it back down to be more straight. It is there, but it's not super noticeable, not like it was. This is obviously the part of the model that was inspired by the tortoise. I think it looks really cool. I put the turret into place atop the hull, and that's the Victoria main battle tank in 28mm scale by World War Design completed. I'm really happy with how this has turned out. It's a very interesting and kind of menacing looking vehicle. I mean, if you saw this thing stomping along towards you, you'd probably feel menaced as well. I really enjoy seeing this sort of what-if, alternative history kind of design that people come up with. It's really interesting and fun. World War Design does have their own game, Unthinkable, though I'm not really sure on how complete that is at this point. These kind of things do take time to develop, but this is a really cool model, and I think you could make it work with a variety of other alternate history games like, say, Conflict 47. This is the second release from World War Design, and I understand that there are more in development, though again, these things take time. That said, I am certainly looking forward to what's next. And of course, if you are interested in keeping up to date, there will be links in the description below, so go and check them out. This model was really quick and easy to build. As usual, I built this on stream, and it took a little bit less than an hour, complete with the usual waffling and distractions by chat and stuff like that. Not that that's a bad thing, of course. It would have taken a bit longer, but I did the cleanup prior to streaming, mostly because this is resin, and I didn't want to do that cleanup on stream. The cleanup didn't really take all that much time, so it wouldn't have really added a whole lot to the total build time anyway. It goes together nice and easily, and the instructions are entirely adequate. I mean, it's not a complex build, though as we saw, I did make the mistake with the fuel tank. Maybe if I was paying a bit more attention to the instructions, I wouldn't have done that. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to put those in the comment section below. If you'd like to watch me build kits like this live on stream, and take part in the discussions in chat with the other good folk there, head on over to my Twitch channel, the link for which is in the description. And if you've not already done so, why not subscribe, follow, ring the bell, become a patron if you'd like to see my videos a bit early, or maybe just come say hi on Discord or Twitch next time I'm live. Links to all of my things like Discord and such are in the description below. And, as always, I shall return soon. So, until then, be excellent to each other, and thanks for watching. Farewell.